Okay. Let's pull it together, what we've been talking about. Thanks for sitting there patiently. God creates, on day 6, he creates animals and he creates man and the dinosaurs together, or what we call dinosaurs today in the modern word. Sin and death enter the world when the first man, Adam, rebels against God, and mankind has been rebelling ever since. Things got so bad that God judged the world, and he sent his global flood. He commanded animals and the dinosaurs to get on the ark, and he commanded them off the ark. And there's lots of evidence for that, as we've been discussing, and much more besides scratching the surface. God will judge the world again based on the moral absolutes he has set. We know we can't fulfil those absolutes, those moral absolutes. He's written the law onto our hearts. We know we've already failed. That's why we need a Saviour, Jesus, to save us from the wrath of God, to make us righteous before a holy God. And God will restore the world again in the future to the way it was in the beginning. I don't know about you, I don't think it's going to take him millions or billions of years to restore the world to its former glory. Everything we see in God's world agrees with what we read in God's word. We've had a whistle-stop tour through some evidence. Thanks for sitting there patiently. There's lots of other evidence besides, of course. It's probably raised some questions in your mind. It wouldn't surprise me. You may have questions regarding that. And Jonathan's on standby to answer all of them. You may have questions. First and foremost, if you want to delve into some of these things further, I can recommend an excellent resource, which is Creation Ministries International, creation.com. Very easy to remember. There's over 8,500 articles on all the questions you can possibly have on there, which have been written by scientists, creation scientists, to explain the evidence. So rather than simply take the secular world's view of it, the prosecution, have a look at the defence and see what that explanation is regarding the evidence. It's quite remarkable. An excellent website. I'm always on it. They've even got an app for your iPhone and so forth. There's a daily article, which I find quite interesting as well. If you're like-minded, have a look at that. If you're also interested, at Chesington next month, on May the 19th, there is a conference day. With the Olympics coming up, we've got a Carrying the Torch campaign going. It's a full-day event, and there's some, again, creation scientists speaking there. If you're interested, it's at Chesington on May the 19th. If you want further information regarding that, go on the website and you can find all the details that you want if you want to have a look at that. Whew. So thanks everybody for sitting there patiently. That brings me to an end of that particular segment. If you want to ask any questions about that or anything in general, then by all means have a go. Don't make them too harsh, but I'll have a best stab to answer them. Thank you everybody for sitting there patiently. Thank you. Any questions? Could you put the Q&A slides on there, Paul? You're not obliged to ask any questions. It's absolutely fine. How dinosaurs died out, first of all, could be through hunting, could be through climate change and so forth, and habitat changes. But once they're killed, of course, we know that when things die, they get ravished by other animals, they get eaten and so forth. And things that get left over can be fossilised or buried in quarries and they get found. But like anything else, it just gets below the surface when things die, ultimately. Yeah.
It was so massive that they took a photograph of it, but they didn't put it on their ship in case it contaminated the fish. But they took this photograph, and it's a definite old fashioned what you could call dinosaur, but it's a fish. It's a water type.
Yeah.
And the Japanese, from that, they made a stamp with an outline of it on it, and that was in 1977.
Thank you, Sam. Yep. You tried to dismiss it as being a basking shark, that particular thing, but there we are. But yep, thanks, Sam. That's excellent. The microphone's coming around in a second, Carol, so it'll come your way. Kevin?
Yeah, you've mentioned Jonathan, and I was here when Jonathan gave a very good talk. And one of the features in Jonathan's talk was carbon dating.
Yeah.
Is that still prevalent in the scientific community, or do you have a view on how carbon dating fits in with how you've described fossils being
I've got
could be formed in a matter of hours or a few short years rather than millions of years?
Yeah, let's have a look at dating. That's a good one to raise there. Thanks, Kevin. Well, can you pick up the radio dating slide? Do you want the number? You're probably right. Yeah, 14, that would be fantastic. Right, here's a flask, a volumetric flask. Radio dating we're talking about now. It's at a level of 300 millilitres. Okay, 300 millilitres. The tap above it has been dripping at the rate of 50 millilitres per hour. Okay, bit of a mathematical challenge for you. How many hours has it taken to reach that level? 6? You're smarty pants, aren't you? 6 hours? All concur with that? Well, you're wrong. Because I filled the flask, I know how long it took. It took an hour. What would explain that then? Yeah, it can be part way full. Good point, Mary. Yeah. Any other explanation? Yeah, could be another source into there. Yeah, very good point, Peter. Any other explanation? Was it expanded? Yeah, not a consistent speed. You see our assumptions change once we look at it from a different perspective. Now with radio dating methods, they assume a certain rate. They look at the rate of a change now, like how long a certain thing's changed into something else, and they simply assume that is the way it's always been. Well, that's not the case. Things do change. There's no guarantees that things stay exactly the same. It's not scientific dating, it's not a way of measuring, it's a way of thinking. I'll give you another example. Here's a swimmer. He's swimming 1,500 metres. This is his last lap. At the time he completes that swimming event, the time on the clock reads 12:56 and 24 seconds. Okay? How long has it taken him to swim that race? So the actual time of day he completes that race is 12:56 p.m. and 24 seconds. But how long has it actually taken him to swim the race? Aha! He's absolutely right. When did he start the race? Now scientists don't know. They can only look at what it is now. They don't know what it was in the past. So they have to make assumptions of when that starting point was, which of course they assume was a long time ago. There's no guarantee that swimmer completed all the lengths. They weren't observed. Now what they will point to is that the watch or the technology they use to do the measurement is hyper accurate. Well, there's a watch. Let's say it's accurate to 1 second every 1,000 years. Does that help you make that calculation of how long it took? Not really. It's all kind of based on assumptions. Well, let me show you again some quotes from scientists. Don't take my word for this, take the scientist's word for it. When it comes to radiometric dating, like in an hourglass, you've got two elements. A 1 changes into another over a period of time. But it assumes a standard rate, like an hourglass, and it assumes that nothing has leaked out of the actual process. It's obvious that radiometric techniques may not be the absolute dating methods that they are claimed to be. Age estimates on a given geological stratum by different radiometric methods are often quite different, sometimes by hundreds of millions of years. There is no absolutely reliable long-term radiological clock. When they've dated things we know of a certain age, like Mount St. Helens, the rock from a new volcanic eruption from the 1980s, you'd expect that to give you an accurate information. So they try to validate their dating methods on new rock, for example. What did that come out at? 120 million years. When they try and date known dates on volcanic eruptions, it's never ever accurate. You get wildly speculative dates. Here's somebody else. The age of our globe is presently thought to be some 4.5 billion years based on radio decay rates of uranium and thorium. Such confirmation may be short-lived, as nature is not to be discovered quite so easily. There has been in recent years the horrible realisation that radio decay rates are not as constant as previously thought, nor are they immune to environmental influences. And this could mean that the atomic clocks are reset during some global disaster, and events which brought the Mesozoic to a close may not be 65 million years ago, but rather within the age of memory and man. Interesting. Carbon dating, Kevin's point, it's like a candle. You don't know how big the candle was when it started, you don't know how fast the candle rate has burnt down, but you just assume it's a current rate. Now what's interesting, when scientists put forward an object for dating, whether it's wood, whether it's rock, whatever it may be, they have to fill in forms. Okay. Now I've got this off a evolutionary scientific website, a submission form. This is part of it. I want you to look at what's on that form. Is there anything suspicious on that form which could give you doubt to thinking, this is not cracked up as it's supposed to be? Yeah. They have to state what they expect to get as an answer. Because they get such varied results, they keep on testing, believe it or not, until they get the answer that they'd expect to get. It's amazing, isn't it? It's simply not reliable. So, I don't know if that helps. It can get quite complicated, carbon dating, but I like simplicity. I'm a generalist. If you want lots more information on that, creation.com will give you an awful lot more detail on carbon dating methods. It simply isn't what you think it is. That's why, remember that Lewis Jacobs quote regarding co-occurrence of men and dinosaurs would dispel evolutionary theory? Interesting, he didn't mention carbon dating or radiometric dating as proof of long age. Interesting that, isn't it? What he didn't say in that article. So it's not cracked up as it's supposed to be. I think Cal had a question, Shagan.
I don't know if I'm right in assuming, but some dinosaurs were vegetarians and some were meat eaters. It's interesting that there was a division in their eating habits, wasn't there? Yeah, good point, Carol. But again, going back to the Bible, when everything was created, everything was vegetarian until the time of the fall. Then when God cursed the earth, then sin and death entered the world, a physical death as well, and so animals then started to eat each other, and we've got a record of that, dinosaurs fighting other dinosaurs. We have a record of a tooth in the back of a stegosaur in its spine, so it must have lived with pain and so forth. They obviously fought. So the death and suffering must have taken place after the fall, because the Bible tells us everything was vegetarian. And it goes back to the point, something's teeth initially doesn't mean to say it was a meat eater, because again, certain vegetables would benefit from having large sharp teeth, which are also very useful for meat as well. But we've got two dogs, and it's amazing when you take them for a walk how often they go off on the side and start to eat plants, isn't it? Animals have got a natural association with plants as well as meat, and even animals we think as purely carnivores. Right, Carol? Any more? Okay. Well, I expect you're ready to go home and get into nice warm beds and so forth. Thank you. I want to say a prayer before we finish. Thank you so much for coming out and blessing me with your presence tonight. I really do appreciate that.